What's going on, everybody? This week, I'm going to show you guys how to install some full extension drawer slides. Hey everybody, welcome back. Jason with Vince Woodworking, and this week I am going to show you some good techniques on how to install full extension drawer slides. As you can see behind me, I have the cabinet that I released as my last video where I just went over some basic tips and tricks on how to make very basic cabinets. And I'll go ahead and put a YouTube card up in the corner if you missed that video and you want to check that out. In this video, I'm going to go over a couple of different techniques that I take when I'm installing full extension drawer slides. That's the only type of drawer slide that we'll talk about in this video. But whether you're putting the drawer on the bottom and working your way up from multiple drawers, or you just want to install one drawer at the top, I'll show you a few tips and pointers that I found that have helped me over the past, and hopefully it will help you. Before we get into it, I'm going to go ahead and show you the different items that I'm going to be using and talking about in this video. So the first thing here, I have two 10-inch full extension drawer slides, which we'll talk a little more in detail. I've got a mini awl, which I will show you what I use that for. I've got my screws. I've got a spacer piece, which this will be used when we are installing just an upper drawer. I've got my favorite tool ever, the Incra Tiny-T. I've got my Festool CXS drill. I'm using this drill because it's small and I need to get into tight spaces. I'll be using one of these DeWalt trigger style clamps. And then here I've got my drawer, which is literally just four sides. There is no bottom. The drawer is just for demonstration purposes in this video. All right, so when I'm getting ready to go do my drawers for whatever cabinet that I'm building, I found that there's three things that I always want to know right off the bat. And these are three important things that I wanted to highlight here. So the first thing is the width of the opening on your cabinet. Obviously, you need to know how wide your cabinet is. That way you can figure out how wide your drawers need to be. The next thing that's very important is the width of your drawer slides themselves. So you want to know how wide each one of these is, or the pair is. And the third thing you need to know is the width of the drawer material itself. And in this video, I'm using 3/4 inch plywood, which is actually 18 millimeter plywood. So it's important that you know the thickness, because that's all going to come into play when it's time to make your drawers. Okay, so now to get in a little bit more detail what I was talking about. So the first thing that I mentioned is you want to know the width of your opening. So I'll go ahead and measure how wide 10 and 15/16, or 278 millimeters. You will hear me referring to this in both imperial and metric, because typically I use metric now. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. The second thing that I said is important to know is the width of your drawer slides. So here I have both of my drawer slides back to back, basically, because I just want to get one measurement for how wide these drawer slides are. So when I do my measurements, both of them together is 15/16, 23 millimeters. The third topic was the plywood itself. And you'll notice that I have two pieces here together of this 3/4 inch plywood. Reason being is because each one of these, if you refer back to my drawer making video, which I'll leave a card up in the corner for you if you haven't seen it, is these will act as the sides. So I need to know how thick these two are. And yes, I could just multiply the one measurement by two, but why not measure them both when you have the time? So this is 1 13/32, or 36 millimeters. So what I found works best now is you're going to take the opening, the measurement of the opening, you're going to subtract the measurement or the width of your slides, both slides. You're also going to subtract the width of both pieces of wood here, and that is going to give you the distance that you need for your front and back. And I'm going to show you an example of why I switched to metric and I find metric to be so much easier. Alexa, what is 10 and 15/16 minus 15/16?
10 multiplied by 1,516 equals 15,160.
She didn't let me finish. Alexa, What is 10 and 15 sixteenths minus 15 sixteenths minus 1 and 13 30-seconds?
This might answer your question. Minus 0.9375 minus 1 plus 1,330 seconds is 1,328.0625. Did that answer your question?
No, it didn't.
Thanks for your feedback.
It's so confusing. Now let's try this. Alexa, what's 278 minus 23 minus 36?
The answer to your calculation is 219.
There you go. 219 millimeters. That's how long my piece needs to be. No 30 seconds, no sixteenths, no eighths, no nothing. 219 millimeters. That's how long it's going to be. These are 10-inch full extension drawer slides. And what it means by full extension is that when you pull this out, it's extending the entire length of the drawer slide itself. So it will give you 10 inches. It'll make your drawer come 10 inches out of whatever cabinet you're building. How do you figure out what size drawer slide you need? Well, it's really quite simple. It's just however far you want that drawer to come out or however big you want that drawer, that's the size drawer slide that you need. For example, so these are 10-inch full extension drawer slides, like I just said. I made this drawer 10 inches in depth, and that was easy because I just cut my sides to be 10 inches. Now, this is a 10-inch full extension drawer slide. However, it is just under 10 inches in length. So however long your cabinet or however deep your cabinet drawer is going to be, that's what size full extension drawer slide you want if you want it to come out all the way. So to disassemble this into the two parts that it comes in, it's really quite easy. You're simply going to slide it, and when you slide it out, you'll see this little tab right here. Well, if you take that tab, let me go ahead and show you that again. If you take that tab and you press that down just like that, this piece will slide out. Now, this is the piece that's going to go on your drawer itself. This is the piece that is going to go in the cabinet. The first drawer that I want to discuss is we're going to install a drawer on the bottom of the cabinet. And if this had multiple drawers, you would just work your way up. I found that's the easiest way. So all you're going to do is you're going to place this drawer slide in. I actually like to make it so the edge of my drawer slide is pretty much flush with the wood itself. I might catch some flack for that because I've seen a lot of people say that you want to have it set ever so slightly back. Not really sure the reason. I found that by having it flush, it works just as good. My drawer is still inset ever so slightly to where when I go and put my face frame on, it's tight up against the frame itself and not sticking out. I'd rather have it a little further back than too far out. If you're unable to get it in the exact spot that you want, luckily, the back of these drawer slides have holes that you can use that will allow you to slide it forward and back. So if I was to use this hole for my screw, obviously I don't have as much play as if I was to use one of these elongated holes where I could slide it front and back in order to ensure that my door is perfectly flush against the cabinet frame itself. If I'm doing a bottom drawer, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this bottom shelf right here as my template. So I'm gonna just place my drawer slide so I know it's laying down flat on the base here, and that's where I'm gonna go ahead and drill it into place. We have to put this on the drawer itself. So how do I actually figure out exactly where on the drawer I need it to go? Well, I'm gonna show you that here now. You see the center of the slot where you're actually gonna put the screw. And if you can see it clearly, you'll see that it's roughly 28 30-seconds to the center of that slot. That's a good place to start, but what I like to do is take it to the bottom of that line where you can see here is 24 30-seconds. So I'm taking about 1/8 of an inch off. Why am I gonna take 1/8 of an inch off? Well, the reason is because if I was to do it perfectly on that center line, when I have my drawer slide in, this will be exactly the distance from this bottom board here to where this is going in. So what that means is when I push this in, it's gonna be scraping the bottom of the shelf, and I don't want that. By basically going 1/8 of an inch down on the drawer slide itself, it's going down further on the drawer Therefore, the drawer, when I put it in, will be raised. So now to further illustrate this, and hopefully this will make more sense, is I've got all of my measurements here on my Tiny-T. And remember we said 28/32 is where the center line of the slide itself is, and we wanted to drop down to 24. So I'm going to use that 24 and I'm going to scribe a line. This is now the center line of the portion here that I need to put on my drawer itself to go into the drawer slide. This is where I like to use my awl, and there's a couple of things that I want to do. So you want to make sure that this is flush with the edge. So you could just try to use your finger and hold it in place, but what I found, just take a straight board and line it up on the end, slide your drawer slide forward. You make sure that that line is as close to center as possible, and then I'm going to use my awl to mark where I want my screw to start. Here, just like on the slides themselves, you have 3 different holes you can use. So this is a more permanently fixed one. This one would make it so you can move up and down, and then this one would make it so you can move front or back. Early on, I would sometimes use these screw holes in an effort to correct any mistakes that I made. But however, now that I've done it quite a few times, I feel pretty comfortable using the more permanent holes. And so I'm just going to mark in the center there, and then in the back, I'm going to mark where I want my screw to go in the back hole. So now we're ready to go ahead and attach the slide itself to the side of the drawer. And the screws that I like to use are these 5/8 inch screws that you can buy, or that usually will come with the slides. Obviously the length of your screw would depend on the thickness of your material. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to screw in the first screw, but I'm not going to screw it all the way in. I want it to be a little bit loose because that will allow me to manipulate the slide itself to get it in the perfect position. Once I've gotten it to the position that I want it to be, I'll go ahead and screw in my rear screw all the way. And then I will go back, make sure that everything is still lined up, and I will install the second screw. Now obviously you're going to flip this over and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Just make sure that you identify where the front of the drawer is, because you want your slide obviously to be the same on the opposite side. The only other step left is to go ahead and install my drawer slides on the bottom of each side. I find that by having the drawer slides out, when you're going to slide these rails into it, being able to depress the slides just a little bit in order to get it to go back smooth works very well. Something I want to point out is that when you start to push these back for the first time, what'll end up happening a lot of times is it'll be hard to push back. And the reason why it's hard to push back is because it's like setting the slides. So once you get it in and you push it, then it should be good to go and slide freely, just like that. Here I just wanted to bring it in for a closer look. You have this gap down here at the bottom, and it's nice and even all the way across, almost about 1/8 of an inch. So that's important that you have that because you just don't want the bottom of this drawer sliding on the wood itself. All right, so now if you wanted to continue your drawers up the way, then all you would have to do is you can just cut spacers like this, set it on top of that drawer slide. This spacer now references off the drawer slide itself, and then you would just simply set your next drawer slide on top of that. Okay, so now let's say that I want to go ahead and just install one drawer, and I want that drawer to be right up at the top. So the way I'm going to do that is fairly similar to the last method that I used. I'm going to measure my opening, which is 18.5. I know that the height of my drawer itself is 6 inches. So by doing simple math, if I come down 6 inches, then my drawer would approximately be right here. But remember, I do want to have about 1/8 of an inch right up here so that my drawer, with the same principle as I'm pushing it in, is not scraping along this part of the support. What can I do? I can make a spacer block here that I will place inside of my cabinet like this, and then I will install my drawer slide directly on top of this support. Now, the measurement that I'm using for this, because I had 12.5 inches remaining, I made this 12 3/8 because I want it to come down ever so slightly to give me that gap. And to ensure that this stays in place, I'm just gonna go ahead and use one of these clamps because I just want it to stay steady and not move while I'm installing my drawer slide. Got my drawer in place. I've got a nice little gap along the top and everything looks good, looks pretty even. And that is how you would install a top drawer. So installing drawer slides is not a difficult process. Hopefully I was able to share some tips and tricks with you that will help you if it's your first time going and doing it. And just like anything else, the more you do it, the better off you'll get, and things will just start to become second nature to you. As usual, everybody, I will leave some affiliate links down in the description below for any of the tools that I use in this video, should you choose to purchase them and or just want to learn more information about them. That's all I have for you this week. If you have any questions at all, please not hesitate to leave them down in the comments section below. If you're not following me on Instagram, go check me out there at Bent's Woodworking, where you'll get to see what I do on a daily basis. And if you ever have any questions, you can also DM me there, and I will get back to you as quickly as I possibly can. Well, that's all I have for you this week. I look forward to the next video. I'll see everybody then.